Why would the Feast of Tabernacles be an appropriate time for the nuclear holocaust, the Russian attack upon America? For one thing, the Feast of Tabernacles is the feast. There's three big feasts, and the 3 times out of the year in which all the males are supposed to come from around the country and meet at the temple. And this is given in Deuteronomy 16:16. Now the 3 times are Passover, Pentecost, and the Feast of Tabernacles. And the Feast of Tabernacles stands out as the bloodiest of the 3 big feast times. It is the super holocaust. The other feasts, 88 animals total were sacrificed, burnt offering. But the Feast of Tabernacles, 199 animals were sacrificed. So you can see that Feast of Tabernacles is the Holocaust compared to the other feasts. So what better time for the real Holocaust, the nuclear Holocaust, to take place if not at the time of the Feast of Tabernacles? Now, this information, the 199 animals, is they're given in Numbers 29, verse 12 through 38. It says there's 71 bullocks. There's 21 rams. There's 99 lambs, and there's 8 goats, for a total of 199 animals. They were sacrificed over an 8-day period. Now, at the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is at the time of Passover, there was 77 animals sacrificed. That's in Numbers 28:16 through 24. And at Pentecost, which is just a 1-day feast, there was only 11 animals sacrificed. That's in Numbers 28:26 through 31. Now, besides the Feast of Tabernacles being the Holocaust, more of a Holocaust than the other 2 feasts. Holocaust is talking about offering by fire. Besides that, as a reason why the Feast of Tabernacles should be the time, or may be the time, of the Russian attack, which means it's also the time of the Rapture, because the Rapture occurs at the time of the sudden destruction in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3. Besides the fact that the Feast of Tabernacles is the main Holocaust, the other reason is the Feast of Tabernacles is the harvest home, the end of the harvest season. Now, the rapture is described as a harvest in Revelation 14:14 through verse 16. Another reason why the Feast of Tabernacles would fit as the time of the rapture is the end, comes at the end of the church age. And the beginning of the church age occurred at the Feast of Pentecost. And so from Pentecost to Tabernacles, there's 21 weeks between those two poles. They're like bookends. There's 21 weeks, and there's 21 centuries between Pentecost as the in 30 A.D. and Feast of Tabernacles in 2018, so that would be another reason. But besides the 21 weeks between Pentecost and Tabernacles, there's also, like I said, 199 animals sacrificed at Tabernacles. Now, if you think of the number of decades between 30 A.D. and 2020, there's 199 decades. That would match up or parallel the 199 animals sacrificed at the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, if the rapture occurs at the end of September, which is the time of the Feast of Tabernacles this year, or it could be as late as October the 1st, because that's the 8th day of Tabernacles, you count 5 months, and that would bring us to the end of February, because October, November, December, January, February, that would be the 5 months. And that would be the 5 months of tribulation that's mentioned in Revelation 9, verse 5 and 10. And that means that the Antichrist would be defeated, actually killed, destroyed by the end of that time, because Christ comes, the second coming occurs within those 5 months. I would predict it would be, let's say, January, or even as early as December. But what happens is the Russians and other nations are invading Israel. Christ appears over Jerusalem. That's according to Zechariah 14, verse 1 through 4. And he takes the Russian soldiers, he wins them over to his side by his appearing as light. And that's in verse 7. And it'll be a repetition of Acts 9, verse 3. And just like Christ persuaded Paul, or Saul of Tarsus, to switch over to Christ's side and become his soldier, that's what these Russian troops will do. And then Christ sends them home to Russia. And that's in Isaiah 66, verse 19. And they proclaim God's glory, the glory of the second coming, which they have just witnessed. And through that, all the Russian soldiers in Russia no longer serve Gorbachev, the Antichrist, and so he is left with no one to obey his orders, and so he is overthrown. And so he would come to his end, and by the end of February, That's right in line with Purim, which is the time in March, early March, that celebrates the hanging of Haman, which was an early Antichrist figure. That's in the book of Esther, chapter 9. If you have any comments, you can send them to me, Joe Grace, at joegracegrace@gmail.com. And look under the video for the description, because I'm going to give a transcript of the video. And also, please make a paper copy if you want to keep this video, because the computers will be ruined by EMP when Russian attack takes place. So if you want to preserve the information, you've got to put it in the form of a paper copy.